Why did you decide to make this documentary?
I think the thing that sparked the idea for this documentary was the fact that we did grow up in two completely different backgrounds, and because of that we are two completely different people, and yet somehow we are able to be friends and respect each other's views.
Politics has always been a big part of my life. I went to my first protest when I was in a buggy. I was only about 6 months old apparently, and I was always brought up thinking that I should always speak my mind.
I was brought up in quite a religious household, so religion has kind of been a very important part of my life ever since I was younger. And I was raised with these morals and values that I'd always lived by.
With the documentary, we wanted to explore what campaigning means to younger people nowadays and how campaigning has changed in the last 20 years or so.
I feel like one thing that me and Dylan have in common, despite the fact that we were raised in completely different households, is the fact that we were told to be passionate about what we believe in and to stand by that.
Protest.
Divide.
Aggressive.
Stressful.
Passion.
Ugly.
Power.
Tricky.
Protest.
Divide.
Aggressive.
Stressful.
Passion.
Ugly.
Power.
Tricky.
Protest.
Divide.
Aggressive.
Stressful.
Passion.
Ugly. Tricky.
Protest.
Divide.
Aggressive.
Stressful.
Ugly. Tricky.
Give me that. Yeah, man. I want my card. I want my card.
Don't be ashamed! Shame on you!
Get on the wrong side of history.
On the streets! Whose streets? On the streets!
The barbaric European war regime and respect for the fundamental rights of its victims.
For a lot of people that aren't really into politics, campaigning is your first kind of introduction to things that are happening, especially big things like the referendums.
With the whole, even the upcoming referendum and stuff, people are just really angry.
People will be angry, if it's not this reason, it was over the marriage equality one. If it wasn't the marriage equality one, it was the divorce one. Nothing in Ireland is perfect.
When you're face to face with someone and they're really trying to tell you what's happening to someone who isn't you, who hasn't had your experience, and campaigning does that. It confronts people with other people's stories, and that's important.
We need those social movements and getting out there and making our voices heard, because it's the only way that people are going to listen. I mean, they are big topics. I think they're always going to kind of divide people. Politics and religion are always going to be the source of arguments between people. I think that's the same now as it has always been and always will be.
Generally, I like to avoid conflict, and you get so many people that are really strong in their beliefs and kind of stubborn and just unwilling to waver. And I know that in some cases as well, when it's a really touchy subject like repealing the Eighth, you get a lot of aggressive people, and especially on social media as well. I like posts, but I wouldn't ever write my own, or I usually wouldn't share them either.
We are essentially a Catholic country still, and it is hard for a country that has been so tightly controlled by the Catholic Church to then just let go of these values and this kind of doctrine that it has grown up with. I think as a society we really do need to rethink the way we associate women with religion and with our constitution and with our attitudes. I do think I could be friends with someone. I am friends with people with very different political stances, yes, definitely. Politics for me is a very personal thing. I think politics does come into your daily life, but it's personal, and that means that everyone has their own opinion and everyone has their own entitlement to that, and I don't think it defines a character. There's no kind of good and evil in campaigns that are coming up recently, and you can't be black and white about people that way.
I am friends with someone who has completely opposite views from me. It's something we passively give out to each other about. We're like, well, that's ridiculous, but let's go get a drink anyway. There's some people, when they hear someone else has a different view to them, their immediate instinct is to shout, get angry, and explain why they're wrong.
I mean, I could talk to someone all day and they might be voting a different thing than me and I might not know. It's only unless you bring it up. If it is all like friendly and everyone's being civil, then I think you should keep it that way, because that's why we have a vote. So everyone has their own opinion.
It was just a case of like I was friends with people that Dylan was friends with, and we kind of just met that way.
And then in September, the only person that I kind of recognised was Shannon, and her and David kind of sat down beside me, and that was that basically. Quirky.
Creative.
Kind. It's difficult to describe somebody in 3 words. There's the fact that she's amazing at speaking languages, and there's the fact that she's so kind towards people.
And I like the fact that Dylan is very passionate about what he believes in, because I feel like everybody should be like that no matter what they believe in. I feel like if you present somebody with your views straight away, it is automatically putting up this like wall.
Whereas if you're not showing those views from the start, you can develop a friendship with someone and the friendship isn't impacted by those views.
I think we're too understanding.
Yeah.
I feel like we complement each other nicely. There's like Dylan's a little bit more extreme than me, and I'm a little bit more calm than Dylan, and we balance out.
Yeah, Shannon's kind of like, you know, Shannon's the calm mediator between us.
Yeah.
You know, she can just... It's difficult to explain, but I think we just work well together.
We just work well together.
Yeah, we just work well together.
"20 years ago, computers were like a box that took up a whole room. And now you can campaign from like your phone and share all kinds of stuff.
I personally would see something on Facebook and share it if I agree with it or disagree with it. There's more young people that know what's going on, they have their opinions, they really want to get their opinion out there. Whereas like you're talking 20 years ago, people probably wouldn't have even known that much if they weren't looking for it. Whereas nowadays you can go on your newsfeed and then something's there and you can read the article.
I think like part of life is kind of living with people who are going to have different views with you on these issues, and that's perfectly fine. I think accepting different points of view, as long as those are on like good terms, then yeah, no, I think that's life.